Picture with me the broad sweep of winter turning in the vast Russian steppes, the burden of war heavy over the eastern front of World War II. It is the summer of 1942, and the German armies, flush with earlier successes, are pushing ever deeper into Soviet territory. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union is reeling, yet unbroken. Into this storm enters the city of Stalingrad, now Volgograd, an industrial city on the banks of the Volga River, whose name itself carries symbolic weight for both sides. This is the story of how one of the greatest and bloodiest battles in human history unfolded. How strategy, hubris, human endurance, and sheer brutality combined in a 5 to 6 month ordeal that would reshape the course of the war. In 1941, the German plan known as Operation Barbarossa launched the invasion of the Soviet Union. The Wehrmacht advanced rapidly in places, but by winter had already been held up by factors including terrain, weather, and Soviet resistance. Come spring and summer 1942, Hitler turned his attention south. He wanted the oil fields of the Caucasus and aimed to break Soviet resistance in the south. Capturing Stalingrad served both logistical and symbolic objectives. Logistically, it would help control the Volga River and cut Soviet transport. Symbolically, taking a city that bore the name of Stalin would be a propaganda triumph. For the Soviets, the city was vital. It was an industrial center, a transport hub, and had immense moral importance. To lose it would be to concede more than territory. By the summer of 1942, the German forces began pressing toward Stalingrad. The German Luftwaffe bombarded the city heavily, reducing much of it to rubble. On the 23rd of August 1942, massive bombing began. Over a week the housing stock was devastated and tens of thousands of civilians killed. As the German Sixth Army advanced, they drove into the city and its outskirts. However, what they found was not open countryside but a devastated urban landscape, ripe for defensive fighting. Tanks and mechanized units found it hard to maneuver among ruins. Infantry, sewers, rubble became the domain of savage street-by-street fighting. Once the Germans gained entry to the city proper, the combat transformed into a brutal, grinding war of attrition. Buildings changed hands, snipers operated from ruined floors, the Soviets fought for every position, often hiding in basements, cellars, trenches, even sewers. The doctrine of, defend at all costs, came from high up. Stalin's famous order, not one step back, echoed across Soviet lines. The Germans, used to rapid blitzkrieg advance, found themselves slowed, disoriented, and drained. The Soviet 62nd Army under Vasily Chuikov held doggedly. The fighting degraded every element of war: morale, supplies, command structures. The winter and the approach of winter further compounded the German difficulties. By late autumn 1942, Soviet planners launched a massive operation, Operation Uranus, designed to encircle the German forces in and around Stalingrad by attacking their flanks, held by weaker Axis allies Romanians, Italians, Hungarians. This encirclement created the infamous cauldron, in which the German Sixth Army found itself trapped. With the Germans cut off, supplies dwindling, and the winter setting in, the situation became desperate. The city remained contested, but the initiative had shifted decisively. The Soviets launched their final phase, Operation Koltso Ring, in January 1943 to reduce the German pocket. By February 2, 1943, the remaining German forces in Stalingrad surrendered. The disaster for Germany was monumental. The Sixth Army was effectively destroyed. Estimates vary, but hundreds of thousands of Axis troops were killed, wounded or captured. The symbolic and operational impact of the loss was enormous. Stalingrad is widely regarded as a major turning point in the European theater of World War II. For Germany, the myth of invincibility of the Wehrmacht was shattered. For the Soviet Union, the victory provided momentum, morale, and the strategic initiative. Massive casualties were incurred on both sides. Civilians also suffered terribly. Some sources cite up to 2 million casualties including military and civilian. After Stalingrad, the Germans would increasingly be on the defensive on the Eastern Front. The Soviets would go on the offensive. The war's scale and brutality were fully revealed in Stalingrad's rebel-strewn streets. While strategic and operational details matter, so do the human stories. Imagine a young Soviet soldier in a ruined apartment building, defending what used to be a factory floor. He fights through dust, freezing cold, hunger, snipers, artillery shells crashing through walls. On the German side, men cut off from supplies, waiting for relief or breakdown while the city they intended to conquer becomes their tomb. Civilians trapped in the city faced bombing, cold, starvation. One source notes that 90% of the city's housing stock was destroyed and up to 70,000 civilians may have died in the bombing alone. The air was thick with smoke, the smells of destruction and corpses, the ruined buildings silent monuments to broken lives. In such an environment, conventional warfare gave way to something rawer, more elemental. In the aftermath, the Soviet Union commemorated Stalingrad as a symbol of resilience and victory. The city of Stalingrad eventually became Volgograd in 1961 during de-Stalinization. The memory of the battle remained central to Soviet and Russian military culture. From a military historical viewpoint, Stalingrad teaches a number of lessons: the perils of overextension, hubris in command, the difficulty of urban warfare, the importance of supply lines and intelligence, and how morale and determination can shift balances. One historian wrote that Hitler's hubris made defeat inevitable. As we reflect on the Battle of Stalingrad, we see more than a set of dates and troop movements. We see the limits of technological and organizational superiority when confronted by sheer human will in the unforgiving environment of urban ruin. We see war at its worst: massive death, destruction, suffering. And yet, we also see a kind of resilience, a people determined to hold, a general refusing to yield, a moment of strategic reversal that changed the course of history. For your purposes, if you wish to use this for approximately 20-minute narration in English, you may want to break it into roughly 3 or 4 chapters. 1. Prelude and build-up. 2. Assault and urban fighting. 3. Encirclement and collapse. 4. Aftermath and legacy. You might insert transitions like, "Let's pause and look at," or, "Now imagine," to make it more natural as spoken content. Additionally, you could include the images as above at key moments: the bombing of the city, urban fighting, surrender.